Welcome all to the EpicN Tools and Supports for High Road Development webinar as part of our 2020 EpicN free webinar and event series. My name is Marshall Curry, and I'm the EpicN Program Manager, and I'll be moderating our webinar today. Before we get underway, I'd like to introduce our organization and the programming that we offer. The Educational Partnerships for Innovation in Communities Network, or EpicN for short, is the nonprofit association of higher education institutions that adopt the award-winning EPIC model to facilitate high-impact, large-scale university, local gov, or community partnerships. EpicN supports autonomous university programs across the globe that connect their local city, county, and community groups with the human capital of their university to improve the quality of life for all involved. All our programming is presented by the following groups and individuals. Our member programs are big supporters of us. The Ford Foundation and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation support our work, and we thank those groups for their continuing support. A few questions came in through the RSVPs that asked for just a general overview of EpicN and where to find more resources from the EPIC network. And so I've put together a couple slides here to do that. And so here's just our general webinar or website page. Feel free to follow the links on the landing page to get more information for a university or a community or a local government. I'm going to click through a couple pages of that. All of our programs use the EPIC model. In our webinar series, you can find the quick 3-minute video describing the EPIC model and how it works on our schedule page. It'll be one of the first entries on the left side. You can see the video here on the left, and the link to that page with more information is also on that website page. And here, just to quickly recap, are the key elements of that model. These are the elements that all of our programs shoot to achieve with their programs. They respect existing administrative structures. They're genuine partnerships with local government and, when necessary, community partners. They intentionally aim at improving quality of life. They're community identified, and individuals at both the university and the university work to identify those and identify how the projects, when they're completed, contribute to the community. And they're multidisciplinary in large numbers. We'll talk more about that in other videos, and you can get more information about this on our website, as I mentioned. You can also read about how the EPIC model looks when it's applied by a university with a community partner. Reading through our website case stories to see what is unlocked when local governments work with an EPIC program will highlight in an academic year or two, depending on how the university is structured, what kind of impacts those communities make. And you can see that from these stories that are on our website, that there are some really amazing things that happen when our universities use the EPIC model to partner with local governments. You can also find a PDF version of these stories on our website for your use as you're trying to start a program or in conversations with other local governments, or how you see fit. Some of you are coming already willing to take some steps to start a program. And again, I have a couple more slides with resources to help you get started, maybe catalyze your efforts. This glossary of terms is generally used by our programs across the network to help individuals get in the weeds of program management and kind of share in conversation and resource sharing across the network using a similar language as all of our other programs are using. Also, we have a member commons. This is kind of our space where we keep all of our resources behind a password. So that way we're really engaging in a meaningful way with those who want to use our resources. And previously, you've had to pay a fee to access this space, but because our board members are wise and wanting to try and support all of our local governments and communities and universities as they're facing COVID-19, this space is available to anyone without the fee requirement at this time and for the foreseeable future. We hope that more universities can use the tools that are there to improve partnerships and responses to COVID-19 and the following recovery that will need to happen. To access this resource, just email me after the presentation or after you're viewing the presentation with your interest, and I'll get you set up for that. Now, to talk more about one of those resources listed and a couple other tools available to programs, let me introduce our speaker, Joel Rogers. Joel Rogers is the Sewell Baskin Professor of Law political science, public affairs, and sociology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where he also directs COWS, the National High Road Strategy Center, which manages many distinct programs, including the Mayor's Innovation Project, ProGov 21, the UW-Madison EPIC program, which is called the University Alliance, just to name a few of the programs that he's involved with. As the EPIC-N chair, Joel is also my direct supervisor, and so I want to take this opportunity to publicly thank him for his kind support and not lenient management style. He has made room for me and my family to adapt to many new, mostly unexpected realities, and I'm deeply grateful for his progress first mantra. With that, I also want to introduce his program that's a part of the EPIC model, or part of the EPIC network, the University Alliance. You can kind of just generally see the stats from that program. This is a slide we're doing in all of our webinars when a program is represented. So you as an audience member can get an idea of how it's situated within the EPIC network, how it compares to other EPIC programs. The University Year program that, again, Joel's a part of, was established in 2016. They usually have 3 academic years long partnerships and have more than one going at any given time. They have an average number of projects per year to about 25. When you look at all the staff that are involved, usually it's about 1.5 of 2 people, and then a 0.5 of a whole bunch of other people, FTE, involved in their program, like their communication staff and other things like that. And you can kind of see a general description of how they do their final deliverables as a program and a general description of their annual revenue makeup. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Joel so he can dive into, again, one of those resources that can help you as you're managing your EPIC program, and also dive into some other topics that he thinks is relevant for us. And I'll stop sharing my screen at this time. And Joel, you're ready to take it away.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Marshall, for the, I guess, kind remarks. Let me just see if I can find this here properly. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Are you guys seeing EPIC model and tenants now?
Not yet.
All right, hold on 1 second. Are you seeing that now? You're not seeing that. All right. So are you seeing it now? Hold on.
Yes.
Are you seeing it now? Okay. So I'm going to take off from, and I think this will be relatively short. I'll give you a bunch of background at the beginning, and then we'll get to the main thing, which is a new resource developed by COWS, but very much with EPIC and EPIC partners all over the place that I want to recommend to you and make it available to you. What we're going to be concentrating on is the third of those tenets in the EPIC model, which is, what does it mean to intentionally aim at improving the quality of life in area communities? Well, as you may know, what COWS believes, COWS is the organization that I run, we think the way to do it is to go on the high road, take the high road. I'll say what that means in a second, but as background, basically there are 2 ways to make money in this world. You can specialize in treating people like roadkill and the earth like a sewer, and democratic self-government as something to make fun of and mock as always incompetent, as you starve it to death by not paying taxes to it and then extract as many rents from it as you can. I'll call that the low road way to develop. Or you can treat people with some respect and nature with some respect, the environment, and democracy with some respect. And the way to do that basically is to use democracy inside and outside of government to improve the quality of life in general by reducing waste wherever you see it, adding value wherever you see opportunity, capturing and sharing the benefits of doing both with the area community, and then do it again, repeat. Now, the premise of a high road approach, which sounds very simple and is in a way simple, but is not simplistic. It's resting on the idea that what makes a place rich and able to survive into the future is its productivity. And the productivity is best understood as the value of goods and services produced, and then the efficiency of that production. And you should probably measure all the factors of production that go into your society-wide, your social productivity. You should measure your capital and your labor, and but also your energy and your materials, and also, though, the natural services that we get from the environment and the quality of your governance. So we're going to call that all factor productivity. And you can actually model this and satisfy your new classical economic friends by comparing the all factor productivity of different places. But leaving the economics aside, at least for a moment, let's think for a second, and this is what High Road is trying to get at. What are the values that make a place worth fighting for? Why do you want to be in a particular place? Well, you wanted to have a sort of a high and rising living standard with with some the benefits of increased productivity widely shared. You can call it inclusive growth. You don't want to exclude people. You want to include everybody in growing your social wealth. You want it to be democratic. You don't want it to be run by a bunch of dictators from abroad or at home. You want it to be democratic and accountable to the people. And you want it to be efficient in that democracy. You don't want to waste your tax dollars. You want government to be allocatively efficient in the sense of assigning resources and services to the people who want and need them the most. But you also want it to be dynamically efficient. You want it to learn over time. And then I assume you want it to be organized in a way that doesn't limit the ability of other people to live there in the future with equal opportunity and happiness. You want to live today in a way that doesn't limit future happiness. So I'm calling that, so on the inclusive growth, let's call that equity. On democracy, let's just call it democracy. And sustainability. That's basically, I think, what you want. Now, in today's world with a bunch of low-roading firms all over, it's often very difficult to get a community onto a high road, which is understood as a general strategy to realize those values while increasing your social wealth under real-world competitive conditions. It's often hard to get there, but that's what the high road is. We'll talk about why it's hard to get there. And the strategy, again, I know this language may be new to people, is use democracy in state and civil society, reduce waste all over the place, add value, capture and share the benefits of doing both, and then repeat and extend. And if you screw up the first time, don't worry, try again. This is a line from Samuel Beckett I like. Ever tried, ever failed? No matter. Try again, fail better. That's what the high road is about. It's sort of a relatively, it's a radical but incrementally radical approach to economic development. And notice it relies very, very heavily on democracy as something driving development. Democracy is really seen here as a force of production. I don't find it any weirder than thinking about English liberalism as almost as important as the cotton gin to the Industrial Revolution, but maybe you disagree with that. The high road implies choices to get off the low road onto the high road. And those choices you can see for firms and establishments. Low road choices compete on price alone, which generally will lead you to producing sweated labor, high insecurity, punitive human relations, poisonous labor relations, terrible for unions, very low career mobility, high wage inequality, a bunch of environmental damage, very little commitment to place, and encourage undemocratic extractive elites. That sounds sort of yucky, and it is, but it's most of the U.S. economy, unfortunately. High road is you compete on quality and the distinctiveness and performance of goods and services, and that requires, again, that you treat people with some respect and give them some compensation and reward for doing their work, and also that you equip them. It requires continuous innovation because you're assuming a competitive economy. It requires that you always try to minimize waste, and it requires a variety of supportive policy and public goods, and that's the lift that you got to do politically. But it produces, and we know this from communities in the U.S., a lot of nations abroad, higher income, better security, greater income mobility, reduced environmental damage, and greater firm commitment to place. And eventually it'll produce a better establishment than we have now. The choice for communities is to develop or not when they consider that choice. Higher standards of performance and supports in meeting them, to choose or not. And that's a way of stating the high road policy agenda, to close off the low road, help pave the high road with permeable pavement, I assure you, and then enable those stuck on the first to roll along the second. And all this puts tremendous value on the importance of place, the importance of local culture, the importance of the wealth of networks that enables you to get lots and lots of little increments of value connected among people in constructive ways. You could think of us going from poverty to wealth as going from isolation or exclusion, neglect, divestment, to inclusion, cared, investment. It's basically going from isolation to connection. The high road is a way to try to work that out in your community. That's what it's about. You can measure the high road. You can do it for establishments and firms. Here are ways in which we conventionally measure it. We might want to be more demanding than this, but this is what we recommended. We work with cities and states around the country. Is how we had been measuring it until very recently. It's a little bit more demanding now. But it's pretty straightforward. You want to compare what you have to where you want to be to what you currently have. And there are always, in every community, there are some firms that are trying to get on the high road. And there are, in any state, some communities that are trying to get on the high road. So you always have some sort of something to work with. And then for communities, it's pretty straightforward to manage. You look at the health, the wealth, the wages, savings, educational attainment, equality of opportunity and outcome, presence and quality of public goods. You can measure it by joy, well-being. I don't want to get into all the terms, but you can usually put numbers on these things and see how many people are sharing in them. Really, it's not that difficult to tell the difference between a high and a low-roading establishment or community or region or state or world. Let me show you a picture of two identical animals. If you can tell the difference between them, you can probably tell the difference. And I don't know why this is suddenly showing up here. It shouldn't be here. Let me get through this slide quickly. Yeah. All right. Whoop. But most communities don't actually make this choice, as you know. Most communities, and here is sort of a joke on Mark Schlossberg and the EPIC program in Eugene. Most communities waste a lot of money on unproductive investment. Here's what Eugene wastes regularly on roads as compared to other things, which are going to generate a lot more value to it. And most communities make the wrong choices in terms of sustainability and efficiency. Instead of catching raindrops where they fall, they bottle the rainstorms, they put them in the sewers, and they treat the sewers, which accumulate all this waste. They try to increase the number of streets they have to maximize traffic and speed rather than connect people to what they do routinely. They often, this is energy and transportation as a focus. They often bypass communities with long distance highways and aviation rather than connecting them in more efficient ways. They don't try to worry about increasing building and community efficiency, rather they just keep expanding things, electric utility capacity. They don't tend to prioritize local amenities and shared vehicles. Instead, they try to focus on expanding car ownership. And in general, they don't invest to increase productivity and resilience and to reduce the cost of living. That's what the high road tells you to do. Instead, they invest to promote more consumption. Now, when you figure out how to do the right thing instead of the wrong thing, and I assume all of you are a very good will, and why don't we all get on the high road? If in fact it's perfectly competitive and it's possible to avoid tragic trade-offs between equity, sustainability, democracy in a competitive market economy. Why don't most people do it? I think they don't do it either because they're of bad will, or they're ignorant. They don't know they don't know how to do it. And what I want to talk about, I assume all of you are of goodwill, and I just want to alert you to a few resources that EPICN has available to you. Some are from other people. Let me show you a couple of places where you might go to get some help in getting communities onto the high road. One is the Strong Towns thing that Chuck Moran has been running for years. It's got videos. Most of the stuff is more or less for free. And notice that what they're concerned about is growth without prosperity, basically without productivity, not recognizing that places are complex, adaptive systems. They're not just complicated. Indeed, they're not best manages simply complicated systems, but more complex systems. And they have for years, Chuck's been doing this for, I don't know, 15 years now, pointing out very well the cities have vastly overbuilt their number of roads and other transportation infrastructure and other infrastructure, and basically neglected, with terrible equity consequences, their long-term financial sustainability. Anyway, Strong Towns is a site I found useful. Another one is the Post-Carbon Institute. That's the thing that Richard Heimberg is the peep for. They're a little bit more complicated and ambitious than Strong Towns, and probably for your purposes, maybe a little bit less helpful. But they have terrific data, and both Chuck and Richard are, like all of us, are trying to respond to this COVID thing by using what they talk about in their main wheelhouse and see its implications in the post-COVID world. There's also my own site, or not my own site, but the site for my organization. If you don't know it already, you should check it out, cows.org. It's pretty easy to remember. And we are building the high road. I mean, that's what we've been doing for 30 years, since we were founded late 1990. And, we put out a bunch of publications, whatever. Anyway, check it out and see. But there's a lot of instructional material in all three of those sites. There's one I think I may be missing, unfortunately, called the Center for Neighborhood Technology, or CNT.org. And they really should be up there in front. It was just my oversight. I'm sorry this morning. CNT.org. They have a zillion different tools. And then if you want to get into more analytics stuff, there are huge numbers of public things available. Anyone, any faculty person in econ or geography, or, well, probably elsewhere in the university would know about these sources. And then there are a variety of private curated ones. My favorite, although it tends to be incredibly expensive, is economy.com, which Mark Zandi started years ago and then sold off to Moodys, and they immediately jacked the prices up. But if you can afford it, at least for your area, it's really worthwhile to go on there and buy their analyses of your MSA. It's very, very high quality data. They keep it up to date. It's a really good thing to know before you go into anything within your host community, to talk to them about economic development, and it'll give you the basic facts. Okay, but the thing I want to talk to you about today is this new thing that we've developed. It's called ProGov 21, and that's the home site. We'll come back to that in a second. But let me just tell you what this thing is about. Oh my God. I'm sorry. What I have to do now is get on the site itself. Excuse me, Marshall. So I'm going to put this down and you'll see it's right here. Are you still with me? You guys seeing me playing with my home site here?
Yep, you're good.
All right. Okay. All right. So here we are on ProGov 21. Now, I know progressive local policymakers and advocates, fully searchable library of innovative progressive laws, practices used throughout this country. We don't have international stuff particularly here. We will be adding soon, along with toolkits and aids of various sorts in their effective communication. Now, let me just make sure that we don't get in any political hot water. So what we mean by progressive here is not hyper liberal or, marching with the red banner of socialism or whatever. We mean simply and only advancing shared well-being with respect for everybody. Okay, that's all we mean, with mutual respect. And then by local government, all I mean is any non-federal, non-state public entity with power. That could be a county, a city, a village, town, a commission, authority, a board, a district, whatever. And what is up here at ProGov 21, and please, use this thing, kick the tires, improve it with us, get us comments, whatever, more on that in a second. But what's up here are thousands of laws, suggested laws, ballot measures, executive orders, regulations, policy analyses, case studies, fact sheets, other materials. Soon we're going to be doing a bunch of video to help you in communicating and advocating for these basically very good things. It's run by my center at Cows, a little bit there on Cows. It comes from And notice this thing at the bottom. It comes from many different organizations. We built this thing on the shoulders of fellow pygmies, and there are a lot of people contributing, including maybe some people on this very call. Let me just see. But here is some of the people that were getting stuff from the ACLU, Blue Green Alliance, Brennan Center, Center for American Progress, blah, 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 blah. And we attribute all the stuff that we've gotten from those people to them, and you'll see that in the things. Okay, so let's look at, say, the home where we were before. The stuff is organized for you in different ways. There are 17 or 18 basic categories of things that governments have to worry about: children and families, democracy, governance, economic justice, civil rights, public finance, education, energy, environment, natural resources, yada, yada, yada. You guys are very into environment and natural resources. If you pull this up, for example, these are our basic categories, and you'll see that there are a zillion things that we have there. How many do we have here? I don't know. There's, 40, 50, 60. I can't see the number at the bottom, but there's a lot of stuff up here, and then you can easily just grab the thing just by clicking on it. And there are summaries of things. This is all trying to make your life a little bit easier. We're trying to keep it as up to date as possible by giving you, models and other things. It just okay, so that's one thing. Then there's these things that this should be called policy roadmaps. This is all in the process. We just created this thing in the last year. And then there are these policy roadmaps on different things. If you got some area of policy, you're not an expert on it. Well, these things, and these are more numerous than those categories that we gave you before, and they're going to get more numerous still. Again, we're just doing this on the fly. And it may be of interest to you, we have not gotten a dime, not a dime, not a nickel, not a dime from any foundation or anyone to do this. We're just doing this, I don't know why we're doing it. We're trying to create a public good for the movement, but it's amazing that no one thinks this is worth doing. I hope you will find it useful. But anyway, so just to go to the children and families thing, just as an example, each of these roadmaps has 4 or 5 basic parts. One is it asks what's the problem, and then how are people trying to increase shared well-being, addressing it. So it'll tell you, what the basic issue is, and then what are current available levers and targets of reform, and then what are the current reform efforts and tools, with a little bit of highlighting some other examples around the world that you might want to. What more ambitious reform might look like, taking it to the next level, and then other sorts of resources, helpers, allies, comrades, whatever you want to call them. Okay. There's an opportunity to search for stuff. I don't know why housing's up here, but let's search on housing. That's a common area. Okay, so here you have a bunch of tons of stuff on different housing things. Let's maybe take a more common, well, housing is a pretty common problem. Let's take something I just searched on this morning, a problem that I have in my hometown, which is Madison, Wisconsin. We're between 2 lakes, and the Midwest is one of the areas that's going to be favored by more, not less water with the global warming stuff. So we're running into all sorts of problems with flooding. And let's try to see what we have here on flooding. So let's say I'm just looking for flooding, and it's not responding yet, but give me a second here. All right, here we go. Oh, okay, this is not bad. And this was not planned, by the way. This is a real, fairly fast search thing. And we got all these things from, neighboring thing for me, not maybe for all of you. Illinois Bank. Oh, this is a great report on green infrastructure, climate change adaptation for different places, yada, yada, yada. And so you'll see, blah, blah, blah. All right, so how many? So 35 documents. And, if you want to know if your city has a problem with that or anything else, you go to the search thing, you see what we have up there. If there's something that we don't have that you know about, we really, really, really want you to submit material. Please do. It's very easy to do. Again, we're open source, and we're going to screen material, of course. Like, we're curating the material in some way. We don't want to have somebody crash the site and put up garbage or whatever. So we're pretty careful about security on the site. But if you have anything to give us, we would love to hear from you. We'd also like to get comments. Comments, I don't know where we have to find a policy. Somewhere in there's a comment thing, but anyway, write to us, look at us, improve us. I don't know where the comment page, but anyway, we're looking for comments. So that's the new resource I wanted to. Oh, and then you have featured policies of different sorts, and this is going to rotate over time. Okay, but it's basically everything you'd want to know in terms of how you can advance shared well-being in your community with good analytics and tools in communication, etc. And that's the thing that Marshall and I wanted to highlight for you today. Okay, let me stop sharing, and we'll take it from here.
Thanks, Joel. So let's go ahead and just use either the reactions or the thumbs up or the chat box and just share your appreciation or your round of applause for Joel and his presentation of Program 21 and a lot of other resources. Thanks, Jesse. I'm going to talk us through a couple little resources real quick, and then we'll get into the Q&A. So please, I posted the feedback link into the chat box a little bit ago, and hopefully you all can use it to give us some feedback on this presentation. And after engaging with this presentation, either live or via recording, if you're watching it after the fact, please consider doing a LinkedIn or social media post about your experience and thanking Joel or thanking EPICN or sharing with us other ideas you might have for how we use these tools. Use the hashtag 2020EPICN. You'll be emailed a link to view the recording of the session, including the slides and other relevant resources sometime in the next week or two. And you can view more about our events that are upcoming on our website. We have a couple resources to share. One is just a link to the University Alliance. That's Joel's EPIC program. You can get the link there. And then also the Program 21 website is linked here as well. And I might insert the other websites Joel focused on earlier. Please do email me your request at info@epicn.org works, or you can use my email to request your access to the member commons. We have a page up about Program 21 in the member commons itself, so you can find it all in one place. And thank you again for joining the EPICN Tools and Support for High Road Development webinar as a part of the 2020 EPICN free webinar series. Please do look at our website to join future webinars and events. And now let's get into the Q&As. So we're going to start with just a question or two that were prompted from RSVP that you filled out before you got here. We had some come through, and I want to honor some folks who were not able to attend but still had questions. And I think they'll go pretty quickly. So one question we got was, how do I learn more about EPICN in general? Joel, I think I'll go ahead and take this one. I posted some links at the beginning of the presentation to the EPICN website. I think it's a great place to go. You can also email Joel or myself at any time using the contact information listed in the slideshow and get more information there.
Hey, Marshall, you might just give them a very simple email to find you at info@epicn.org. Yeah. We'll go to Perfect. Marshall. Info, Perfect. You can all remember info@epicn, that's the name of the thing, .org.
Perfect. And another question we got is
at fetal stage.
Yeah. So
whoa.
So this is so we got a question about, we're in the beginning stages of our organization. What would I put on the table as material or other description of the benefits from the EPIC network? And so we have, again, those PDF documents that I linked up above, and I can also put people into contact with the individual programs or projects that are more closely related to what you're looking for. That's my main role as an EPIC staffer, is to find the examples you're looking for based on your needs, and then send the PDF versions of them to you so you can literally put them on the table. We also, again, shared about the member commons. Joel, do you have any tidbits.
Well, do you
on.
have the term sheet? That's a nice list of stuff that you get.
Yeah. So that's also on the website, and I can direct them to that as well. It's on the Member Commons front page. So if you go to the Member Commons website that's linked in this slideshow, you can get there as well.
With all you get by joining in with these other people, right?
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Yeah, you got a ton. If you this is addressed to fetal funding characterization. If you're talking to your university, one thing, very material thing that you get is you get use of our shared Qualtrics license. They may already have a license, or they may be paying a ton for it, but you get it just for joining Epic. That's for free for you, and then you get the beauty of Marshall's technical assistance, and you get a bunch of other people, and I don't know, you get some community. It's a community we're trying to build here. Great. Sorry, Marshall.
No, that's what I wanted you to do. So thank you for answering that question too. Let's hand it over to our audience now. If you have any questions for Joel about any of the tools he provided or EpicN in general, go ahead and unmute yourself and let us know what your question is.
I don't have a question per se, but Marshall asked me to share this comment. I'm Connie, by the way. I learned about the ProGov website probably a year ago, may have been at the last conference.
Yeah.
And so
just starting with them.
Yeah. So I've had it on my radar since then. And our current partner has a project they are calling Earth Edwardsville. And part of that project involves thinking through what an Earth Edwardsville Commission would look like, where the various subcommittees of the city would be brought together to be on the same page and to collaborate and share resources. And these are committees that are doing environmental sustainability kinds of projects of some sort. And so they're trying to think about how do they bring those groups together. And for whatever reason, we can't tap into our public policy department just yet. And so I advised one of our sociology students to use this website to see what other folks had around this kind of structure. And I haven't seen her final report yet because she's still working on it. But last week with her update, she said that she had found quite a bit of useful material off of that website that otherwise probably would have missed, would have not been on her radar. So it's good for her to know where that resource is, of course, and how to access that information. But it's also going to be beneficial then for our partner that they'll have these good models and example policies out there to think about.
Connie, you just made my day. That's exactly what I was there for. Okay, that's terrific. I'm so pleased.
And I think that's really what I'm really thankful that Joel's worked to put the Program 21 website together with, another organization and is that it becomes this huge resource for each individual project, each individual student. And so Connie, thank you for sharing that story about how one of your projects is using this tool. And I really appreciate it. Any other questions from the group?
I have a question. This is Lori Dupree Brown from UW-Madison. I'm wondering about the Moodys.com resource. If it might be that our university libraries already have those, or if not, I couldn't tell from what Joel said if it's by MSA, or that might be worth EpicN even trying to get a subscription that people could share. But I think it might be that our university libraries would buy that for us, or may already do that. So I don't know, Joel, if you've had trouble getting it, but the barrier might not be as high as we think in terms of having to pay for it from our small programs.
Yeah, no, I've tried for years at the University of Wisconsin. There may be better universities out there or more amply financed universities, but I've not yet found a business school or anything that has access to the current stuff. And it is expensive. I don't know. I'm talking to Mark Zandy, the guy who built that economy.com. Tomorrow, I'm going to ask him one more time if there's any way to get other people access to the thing. But Moodys is, quite predatory, as you know, from the banking crisis. And they're holding on to those data and they're spending a fair amount of money producing those data, curating the data in ways. But you should certainly ask your B school. They could certainly buy it for, and I'm sorry, Lori, to go back to your first question, it is curated by MSAs, but then you get towns within the MSA as well.
Okay.
Thanks, Lori. I appreciate it. Any other questions, comments? All right.
All right.
With that, I guess, Lori, do you have another question? You waving goodbye?
Well, I have one more.
Go for
I
it. Go for
can
it.
ask Joel another time, but since we're all here, how much do the ProGov categories align with the Sustainable Development Goals? We're starting to see SDG metrics by MSA, and it looks like there's some degree of correspondence. Has anybody looked at that yet?
I'm sure not as much as you'd like them to, but you know, they're broadly, they're not structured to align with those goals. We looked at maybe doing the SDGs as the way to organize this stuff and decided not to because we were advised by local people that that's sufficiently unfamiliar in some of their self-characterization. But it's all moving in roughly the right direction. It puts, as you may have noticed, much more emphasis on democracy and process and accountability than the SDGs do. SDGs is Sustainable Development Goals. For those of you not, I don't know, familiar with this term, it's a term that's much more widely known in development outside of the U.S. than in the U.S. But what Lori is alluding to is the fact that people are trying to get more cities, communities, et cetera, to orient themselves toward the SDGs, which is a beautifully 17 different goals that everybody in the UN, all 171 nations in the UN, have committed to trying to achieve. When you look at those nations, you can see how serious they were about that commitment. But you can say reliably that all of humanity has declared its goals of achieving these things and be serious and truthful in saying that.
Yeah, we'll have probably some future resources on that in regards to individual EPIC projects in the future as well. That's something we're working on behind the scenes, but it's in the early stages.
Right.
But
we're trying to push it all over with mayors and county execs, and it is, as Lori is suggesting, a beautiful way to frame a discussion. Going back to SUIE. You might ask them to look at the SDGs as a way to begin to frame that commission discussion. We found it quite useful just to get people, because it's so inclusive. There's no one who's going to say, "Oh, you're leaving out my concern," but it is limited at the same time, and so you can get a more tractable discussion going off it using them. Anyway, that seems to be it, right, Marshall?
Thank you all for attending.
And and as your incompetent presenter, thanks all of you for listening. I appreciate it. Bye-bye. And good luck with the work.
Thank you, Joel. This concludes our event. You can see the next 2020 EPICN event page. I highly recommend our event coming up on Friday with G. Wasami Tapa from Texas A&M and Daniel Fernandez of CSU Monterey Bay. This concludes the EPICN Tools and Support for High Road Development webinar as a part of the webinar series. See you next time.